Sonic Boom!
Hello everybody, welcome to the Chensor Dynasty here on twitch.tv/jchensor and episode 2 of OK Sonic Boomer with myself, James Chen, and of course, Mr. Cory Bell. Say hello to everybody.
Hi there everybody, my name is Cory Bell, fighting game 09, FGC 09er baby. I'm here to interview / co-host with James. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, and thank you for being on here. I felt like last week went really well, and I felt like, you know, you were perfect for the role, and it just turned out to be so much fun. I'm gonna try to keep it maybe to about an hour and a half today, you know, so we'll see. I know last time we went like 2 hours, so we could talk about this forever, but you know, but yeah. You know, you are a veteran now. We talked about that before. 09ers are veterans now, so there you go.
No, it's just like, you know, last week there was so many questions to go over. I remember people after the fact are like, "Oh, you didn't talk about this, you didn't talk about that." Dude, we could talk about this for days.
Yeah, pretty much.
We could talk about this for days. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, and the tough thing about it too is, you know, we did have a 2-hour show last time, so, you know, we might accidentally start talking about things that we talked about before just because of, you know, overall just passion and stuff like that. So, you know, apologies if we accidentally retread stuff, but we do have the chat here, so if anybody else remembers better than us can be like, "Yo, you guys talked about this last week," and then we'll be like, "Okay."
Yeah, back on track.
Yes.
The other point was also, like, you know, I think there's gonna be a point where you're gonna actually need to get other people on the show, because there's gonna be stuff I'm not gonna know about. You know, like asking people about, like, "Oh, hey, how was this event in history in your region," kind of thing, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, for sure, eventually, especially, like, I would love to get someone like Henry Sen or, like, Arturo Sanchez on here so they could talk about the New York scene, right? Because that's such a different place and different stories to tell than my experience, which is largely just SoCal based.
Yeah, and that's something that's really fascinating, right? And so just because it still does come up in today. So that might be our first topic, is region, right?
Yes.
You hear people talk about, like, so just an example, because I remember this a few months ago, Rob TV, who now lives in Florida now, and I think he used to live in Chicago. I don't remember. But people are talking about, like, "Oh, you know, New York and California has it really easy. All the events are there. all the FGC events are there. You know, that's not fair. You know, we don't have it. Other people in other regions, like out in the Midwest, don't have it as good as us," kind of topic. And that stems all the way from the arcade days, because that's where arguably the arcades were the most poppin'.
Yeah. And again, you know, I touched on it briefly last week, that, you know, a large part of before there was an FGC, it was just about our arcade being better than yours. You know, you just wanted your arcade to be stronger. And, you know, as the world keeps, you know, growing with technology, and the world keeps shrinking in terms of, you know, size and distance, now that we have easy access to each other, you know, that's kind of one of the things we'll probably talk about, is all the technology helping us and everything. But before, when there was, I mean, like I said, we were playing Street Fighter when there was literally no internet, right? I mean, it's crazy.
The internet was like a very advanced concept at most, like, or like, you know, like you had to be like in a lab or something to get you access to it.
Al Gore was still building the pipes, you know? And so back then, you know, the competition, the region, the rivalries literally were just arcade to arcade. You know, even it started within the arcade. I wanted to be the best in my arcade, but then eventually you started hearing about the players from another arcade that was like across town. And that's kind of basically where the rivalries came up. That was the regional rivalry, was my arcade was better than yours, and a lot of the times it was just about who had the better players or more people playing at those arcades. There were so many older arcades in Southern California that were breeding grounds for strong players. Like PacMan Arcade was one that people have talked about, which I've actually never been to. I never went to PacMan before it closed down, and I'm mad at myself that I never actually had a chance to visit that arcade. But that was one of those, breeding grounds for talent. And Yeah, that's what all it was just literally which arcade had the stronger players usually was the stronger one. But then as the world kept shrinking in terms of technology, then it started becoming less from arcade to arcade. Then it became like city to city. And eventually it was like, oh, LA versus San Diego, right? Hey. And
Region cities in California
yeah,
against each other.
SoCal, NorCal became a big thing at one point in time. And then,
West versus East.
Eventually, yeah, then it became East versus West. As it keeps growing, then it became US versus Japan, and it just grew from there. But the region stuff was always just kind of something that was really relative to the technology at the time. And kind of going back to what you were starting with is, it really did come down to, as I said, which arcade had the best players, which locations had the best players. And, as much as Rob TV's, comment is absolutely justified and is true, but one of the reasons why Los Angeles and New York become so strong is because they just have the most people.
Yeah, they're metropolitan areas, huge metropolitan areas.
Yeah, and then obviously Chicago it's a huge metropolitan area, but I'm not sure why it never kind of took off over there. Although I heard the Chicago scene is actually growing much stronger and bigger these days. Shout outs to guys like Ryan Callisto, who are doing a lot of work out there. I should just say Callisto, aka Ryan, doing a lot of cool things out there. But New York and Los Angeles have always been kind of the breeding grounds for a lot of the talent, just because of the fact that they were just crowded and just based off of population alone, you're going to have a lot of the stronger players. You're going to be able to find the strongest players in those areas, and they're going to be able to hear about it a lot easier. And, if you have a pool of 10 million people versus a pool of 1 million people, you're just going to have 10 times the stronger number of players, statistically speaking. So
if you have strong players, it breeds more stronger players. There's a few points I had plus a question. One of the points the point slipped my mind. Question. What's PacMan Arcade?
PacMan Arcade was, like I said, I'm sad that I never went there, but it was just one of those arcades that was in Los Angeles. Not even sure exactly where in Los Angeles, but I've always heard it was like one of those like little CD arcade areas, but apparently it was one of those places where a lot of the strongest players in Southern California played Street Fighter and became very, very strong at Street Fighter. This would be a great question to ask someone like Mike Watson, to get like Mike Watson on the show or something and have him talk about that. And oh boy, we would get a lot of fun opinions about fighting game community if we got Mike Watson on the show.
I would love to hear. Thing is, actually, yeah, maybe that's a question you put out in the Twitter sphere of, hey, who here had a lot of experience? Like, whose home arcade was PacMan Arcade?
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if anybody in the chat right now actually has ever played a PacMan Arcade. But again, it's one of those things. You'd have to be Southern California. You'd have to be super old school to be able to play at that arcade, And it was one of the big arcades, and they would run a lot of tournaments, and it was a very fervent breeding ground for strong Street Fighter players, where a lot of them would go. And it wasn't even just that arcade birthed a lot of the Street Fighter players. I don't think. I think it was more that it just became one of the meeting grounds. A lot of the players in the LA area were very strong. That's what happened a lot in Los Angeles. It wasn't just like one arcade created a lot of these players, because as I mentioned last week, people were playing everywhere. There were good players everywhere, but then eventually one or two arcades would just kind of become the mecca, the hub. World's Finest, which was the comic book shop that the Pico Rivera tournaments were run at. We didn't even get into the Pico Rivera tournaments last time. That's where guys like Tomo made a name for himself and became one of the best players in Southern California. Is where the tournaments first started in Southern California, was this tiny little comic book shop in Pico Rivera, a little small suburb in Southern California. But people would gather there. That place eventually stopped, and then it became PacMan Arcade and a couple of different arcades around the place. And then eventually, Southern Hills Golfland became the absolute mecca of all fighting game situation. Oh yeah, Mike Watson would hella call the current FGC solid.
It's definitely a different place.
Yeah, it's a different place. But even Mike realizes that too. Because, when he was running Super Arcade, it was a very different kind of way that he would run that as well. He would definitely still try to avoid as much of the esportsness as possible. But, there is still, as a business owner, as a person running these tournaments, you gotta still be welcoming and, to all your patrons and stuff like that. It's different times for sure. Back then, like I said, we mentioned last week, we couldn't even decide what games showed up at arcades. We weren't friends with the arcade owners necessarily. We were kind of victims of whatever we could get. And so, we also didn't care if we fought in arcades or I mean, like, I'll admit it. I was an angry kid. I'm an emotional guy. People have watched my stream. I used to be one of those guys that would pound the cabinet when I lost. I would just be like, damn it, and I'd like punch the cabinet, because I would just get so mad and everything. And that's just the way it was. Like, people, like, you just didn't. Arcades were. It was so like detached from people running the arcade so that you would actually just kind of hit machines and break them and stuff. And it was really bad. It was really bad back in the time. So definitely different time.
It was definitely a different time. Oh, sorry. Just to comment on Phil Dingus's point, I just feel like it's a different time. I don't want to say one was necessarily right or wrong. Like, between now and then, it was a different time.
Mm-hmm. And you know what Imhale says or Imhale, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Talking about this, I do like FGC rivalries, and I keep telling people to keep utilizing them, like, for example, New York and LA always has this rival. There's this NLBC, Wednesday Night Fights rivalry. We've always had like matches between the two. People have asked me how to grow the Texas scene again, and I know it's really hard because if you've been to Texas, you realize that every city's like a 2-3 hour drive apart from each other.
It's huge.
I would have tried to do like a Texas rivalry thing, San Antonio versus Houston versus Dallas, versus Austin kind of thing. Set up that kind of a system, because one of the nice things about rivalries, and this is one of the reasons why NorCal and SoCal have been so strong, and East Coast, West Coast have been strong. In fact, I have a whole huge story that I've told before about, the East Coast, West Coast rivalry and how it kept everybody so strong. But it gives you vested interest to make the people in your area better. If your rival is the guy that you fight in the arcade all the time, you're not going to tell him all his weaknesses. But if he's part of your team to beat Team NorCal and you're part of SoCal, you're going to be like, look, bro, you keep doing this after this every single time and people take advantage of it. Stop it so you can beat these other guys, I've even
had that pride you have in your home turf.
Yeah, exactly. I even told like Midwest and everybody, like, just start calling out the South, or start calling out like a different area and just being like, you guys suck. Like, if New York and Los Angeles have a rivalry, why not make it so that Texas and Midwest have a rivalry, right? Just randomly do it, and it's just gonna, and as long as you keep it in game, and as long as you keep it so that it's civilized. We don't want people actually like NLBC and Wednesday Night Fights, we want to beat each other's ass, okay? Like, that is for sure. We want to win. But, are we going to get into actual fisticuffs over this thing at this point? No, that's not. We're always going to respect each other in the end. And so, that's kind of the whole thing. We want to be, that's the whole nature of fighting games. You want to beat the guy you're playing against, but you always keep it in game. And I think that's important.
I've always liked I think it actually might have been you who mentioned this, acting as if it's like professional wrestling, right? You have a heel, all right? You have a storyline. I've always felt that made FGC so interesting because you see people playing it up, you see people talking shit, and it gets really exciting. For me, that's what grassroots FGC is. It's
Yeah.
people talking all the shit they want in order to make things hype for the audience.
Oh yeah. I mean, I never want to fabricate it, you know, and that's the nice thing about the FGC is our personalities are so, you know, crazy and out there that we almost never have to fabricate it. I remember, you know, when E-League did the whole thing with Wolf Crone and K-Brad and they brought in the security guards and all that stuff, and I was like, God, you don't need to go that far, you know, you don't need to play it up like that. Like, just let it happen naturally. And, you know, the FGC is just one of those great environments. Seth Killian always had the greatest comment, you know, about Evo. You know, it's just kind of this whole thing that, you know, they don't manufacture hype at Evo. You just create the stage at which hype can happen, and hype happens, because as long as the drama is real, as long as the storylines are real, you get the Dogura and Galileo match, and, you know, that drama was real. You get the Bala and the, you know, Bala losing KOF 13 the first year, and then Reynolds coming back and taking it the next year, and the audience, you know, having all the chants and everything. All that stuff was real, and you get those awesome top eights because it's so genuine. And, you know, as long as we do that, and so as long as the trash talking is real, I do like that, you know, people take the heel roll. There's F-Chap who takes the heel roll to KBRs, you know, to the what is it? What's the other one? Face and heel? Face, right? The good guys.
Yeah, face. Like a face, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, KBR would kind of be the face, and F-Chap would be the heel, you know. But again, you know, we saw at Reflex 10K, even though everyone got all excited when they were playing each other, in the end, you know, F-Chap, after beating KBR, gave him a hug and, you know, told him that he respected him and everything like that. And so, you know, that's kind of the thing that, you know, I like to see. I like to have those storylines. And why in commentary I like to talk about those things. So, you know, during the one Capcom Cup, I kept hyping up the Itazan versus Nemo storyline, that those two hate each other. And they ended up playing each other in top 8, and it was great. You know, it was fantastic. And that's when Nemo did the handshake thing, you know, and it was wonderful. And you talk about those things, and I love those kind of stories, but, you know, as long as they're natural. I don't want to make stuff up. That's just all it
Real
is.
emotion.
Yeah, exactly.
There was so many moments that I really, really liked growing up. Or, you know, just seeing in the FGC, who was it? Yeah, Say No to Weebs, nice name, mentioned the Florida versus Texas MK11 event, which was at Combo Breaker last year. That was such a cool event. I loved watching that tournament. It was so good.
Dude, at the end of the year, we always do the Ultra Chen TV Awards, and for 2019, that was on my top 3, one of my favorite matches of the entire year, because that thing was so good. You know, especially when you had even guys like Katana Prime on commentary, like popping off, you know, for his squad as well, and everybody was just like popping off all over the place. But in the end, it was, you know, the drama was there, and, you know, it came down towards the end, and oh God, it was so good. And if you guys actually haven't had a chance to watch that, you guys need to go find that on YouTube and just watch it. It's long, because obviously it's an 11 versus 11, or was it? Yeah, it was 11 versus 11 or 10 versus 10 or something like that.
It was something like that, yeah.
It was a long event, but
it was a lot of people.
It's so good. It was so fun to watch. If anyone goes and finds it right now, please paste it in the chat if you guys can. So,
as someone who doesn't play MK and doesn't really care for MK, to be honest, which is just my opinion, by the way, that event was so good. That event was so much fun, and I feel that's what makes a really good event to watch or tournament, is you don't even need to know the game, and the entire event is just fun as hell.
Yes. It's. I mean, I think I talked about it last week. I know I talked about it on stream recently. Yeah. Okay. Hang on a second. I got the link for you guys over here. I'm just going to paste the link in the chat over here. So there you go. So here's the 10v10. It is definitely on Team Spooky After Hours by NYC Furby. So, but, you know, for example, like you mentioned, you're not really that into MK, but that event was super hype. I'm not really into Dragon Ball, but every time Goichi and Sonic Fox play each other, I have to watch.
Their storyline is the best.
in this last Evo, you know, when Goichi won Evo, and to see how he just started crying and like he had to throw the glasses off and he was like shaking. He could barely like keep his emotions in check, and Sonic Fox is just like laughing and hugging him and stuff. Oh, it was so good. It was so good, man. Oh.
See, I feel those are like two different types of storylines, right? Like, well, the one we were talking about earlier is more like grassroots, like, oh, people are talking shit, and there's like, you know, a lot of tension between these two teams or two regions. And the Goichi Sonic Fox was definitely more personal, but you could see how how expressive they were.
Yeah.
And that is really heartfelt because you could see that they played from their heart, and that felt really nice.
Yeah, and again, see, that's what I mean. It's like the FGC is, I feel like, just such a magical place that we really don't need to manufacture any of this stuff. It's just gonna happen. You just get with these rivalries, even if it's a rivalry of respect like Sonic Fox and Goichi, or a rivalry of genuine dislike for each other like Wolf Crone and K-Brad, right? That one very famous final round moment when those two players played against each other and K-Brad won and just like got in Wolf Crone's face and just stared at him, and you had the Mount Rushmore of reactions in the background of PR Rog and L.I. Joe and a bunch of other guys going, "Ooh!" Like that was just, it's so genuine. You don't need to manufacture it. You don't need to hype it up. You know, it's just there. And sometimes even if someone wins and doesn't react and doesn't say anything, and it's just like handshake and it's done, like that says a lot. Obviously the Vasant low tier god.
Legendary.
Right.
I heard that was the one thing. Someone actually told me they saw that on World Star. They were like, yeah, not even the FGC at all. They said, like, yeah, that video was on World Star, they said.
Yes. Oh my god. Thompson versus Nikki. That's a killer instinct. That's a killer instinct rivalry right there. But man, this is what I mean. It's just like these rivalries just kind of happen naturally. And yeah, the LTG and Vasant one probably got maybe played up a little bit more than it needed to be. And, you know, it kind of maybe kind of exploded a little more than it even had to have happened, but still, you know, it was very organic the way that it happened, because one person, I met the person, it was one of the guys who actually helped me with the shoot 'em up commentary, the Battle Garega commentary for the Kimono Michi. He was like, yeah, I told Mike Watson I would front some money for them to win, and then Watson got it all together, and like it just happened, you know, it just like a bunch of different people just like, I really want to see this happen, and it happened. And it was really it was a lot of fun, and trust me, the stuff LTG and Vasant were saying each other definitely sounded like it was scripted, but there was definitely genuine feelings,
genuine tension.
Yes, I was actually worried that there was going to be fisticuffs.
It sounds really cheesy, like, because to be honest, they probably were coming up with things to say on the fly. But it at the very least was a very legendary moment where, I mean, come on, how many events can you really name off the top of your head where it's like, oh yeah, people who aren't even FGC know what that is.
Right? And it's funny too, because you know, you look at someone like Vasant, and he doesn't seem like someone who would be, you know, that kind of person who would just sit there and talk that kind of trash. But it's very similar to, you know, the stories that I've told of Justin Wong. You know, when you're in the MVC2 community, you kind of have to learn to be that way. Otherwise, you really couldn't survive in that community, because that was one of the most hardcore communities out there. Like, you either put up or shut up. Like, that was the community of, you know, people will be yelling at you and talking trash. I mean, we've seen like the Executioner versus Brahim kind of, you know, money matches and stuff like that. The Dark Prince stories and everything, you know.
Yelling at your face in the middle of your combo to tell you to drop your combo.
Yeah, oh God, my favorite was the Dark Prince versus Clockwork. They had a 1st to 10, I think. And there was one point where Clockwork had a setup that he calls a Strider bomb, then goes for something, and he's vulnerable to Air Hyper Viper Beam. And so Dark Prince did the Air Hyper Viper Beam and caught Clockwork, but Clockwork knows the setup, and the Strider bomb is designed specifically to hit Cable out of the Hyper Viper Beam. So as soon as Dark Prince did that and started shooting with a Hyper Viper Beam, you just see Clockwork. Like, as soon as he starts getting hit, everyone's like, oh, but then Clockwork just points at the screen, and then the bomb hits Cable and it stops, and everyone's like, oh my god, dude. Like, it was crazy, dude. It was such a hype moment when Clockwork did that. I was just like, oh, yo. And Clockwork is another one of those guys who's like super quiet, super reserved, but you put him in this MVC2 environment, and all of a sudden he's like cocky pop-off king, you know?
And so that's one of the points, right? Where just to slightly go back to another point we made earlier about, oh, if Mike Watson were here, he would call, the current community soft. And it's like, it's different because at that point in time, that was generally more accepted. In fact, not only was it accepted, you had to be that tough. It was a very rough and tumble environment. And also because I guess you could argue because it was more grassroots, it was less about money. In fact, there's probably less money going around. People were like, yeah, we're here for the fun of it. I'm here to talk trash and make sure we have a good event. Well, now it's like, hey, there's money on the line. Did you just mess me up? That goes against the rules. Capcom Pro Tour rules says you can't do this, this, and this, whatever.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there is definitely something to be said about, playing for pride as opposed to playing for money, because, back then it wasn't about that, but I think it works both ways as well, because like the Galileo Dogura match that I mentioned earlier at Evo Top 8, I mean, that one was largely about money, because I remember, I think Dogura was engaged, at that time. He's married now, but they had planned to use that money for the wedding, etc. And then he was up and ended up losing that match, and Galileo took it, and there was just emotions. And like I said, I think I mentioned this last time, or it might have been on another stream, but when you sit there, and I was there, and when you actually see like people like knelt on the floor just like crying, just like because they're so like tears of joy and tears of sadness. You had both of them in there, and it was just like, it was something to behold. It was so crazy. But pride is always going to take over, because you talk to someone like Punk, and I respect Punk so much. I respect him so much because he's a guy who could basically win anything he wants. And, he's actually told me he wants to win EVO more than he wants to win Capcom Cup, because even though Capcom Cup has the money, but just being able to put your name onto one of those, on the list of EVO winners is more important to him. There is that sense of pride, of history, of trying to cement yourself into that place of EVO winner. So that is something that he's more invested in, is winning something like that than Capcom Cup. And I think that's fantastic. So, pride is definitely Justin rolling across the stage.
That was great. I remember that. But that's a heart of a champion right there. Someone who's that dedicated, where it's like they want to be the best. They want to make their mark on history.
Yeah. And it's just funny, too, because my favorite video was when someone actually took that Justin video and edited it so that it went black and white in slow motion and put the GTA wasted on the screen. Like, he just starts tumbling. He's like, wasted. He just, like, rolls over. Oh, that was hilarious. But, that was, again, another one of those pride situations, because Justin got second place to Flocker the year previous to that. And, he hadn't won another EVO outside of MVC2 in a while. And so, he really wanted to win in a different game. And then he got that MVC3 event. And you can tell it meant that much to him. So much to the point that he had no control over his own faculties and just kind of tripped. There's been a lot of injuries in top 8 celebrations.
Do you know of some other ones, like of other injuries that happened as a result of celebrating?
Yes, Yipes winning MVC2 at EVO. That was probably one of the most famous ones. After he beat Justin in grand finals, he jumped in the air, landed, and twisted his ankle. And literally the next day, I saw him being wheeled around in a wheelchair the next day. I saw him and I was like, yo, are you okay? And he looks at me, and the first thing he says is, yo, man, fat man shouldn't jump. Which was great. And actually, so the story of Yipes saving the old man in the subway. Do you know that story, Corey? Have you?
I do know that story.
Yeah, so
but please tell the audience.
Yeah, an old man fell into the tracks of the subway, and the train was coming. Like the train was on schedule to show up, like right there. And everybody was just like standing there like, oh my God, except for, guess what? Marvel fighting game reactions, right? Yipes immediately ran over there and jumped down into the tracks to help the old man up. And as soon as he jumped, that's when everybody else started moving. And so Yipes lifted the old man up, and they all helped pull the old man up, and then they all helped Yipes up. But afterwards, Yipes was injured from jumping down, because that's a far distance to jump down, and it was actually a re-injury of that old MVC2 ankle twist. So, you know, it was always going to be a little more delicate, and so he actually re-injured that. But they managed to get him out there. He was with Persia at the time, and Persia told me the story that she was just screaming because, you know, the train track was coming in, and it was like completely terrifying. So
last action here is jumping right into the action. You know, before anyone else could react. Dude, Marvel reactions, he's just on there.
Exactly.
Dude,
so
new age of heroes. All right.
Nice. Well done. And honestly, I mean, this is why I tell people, you know, Yipes is one of those guys I would trust with my life. I would take a bullet for that man because, you know, he is, to me, genuinely one of the greatest human beings in the FGC. But yeah, he did injure himself when he won MVC2. So you might say they were taken for a ride. Oh boy.
No. The thing is, Yipes is definitely one of my favorite people in the FGC, and anytime I've ever interacted with him, he's always been a genuine person. And it's so funny because even before I knew what the FGC was, I knew who Yipes was because of the Marvel 2 video. The curly mustache, you know, that's so Pringles, that video.
You know, it's funny because I actually had a coworker walk up to me one time, and they were like, hey, I saw this weird video on the internet of like some guy yelling about Pringles and stuff, and I was like, yep. I was like, yep, I know that guy, he's the best. And he's like, what is the deal with that? And he was like, that's just Yipes, man. That's just Yipes, that's how he is. And it's funny too, because that video, by the way, just to tell another early story, like when I first got into commentary, that's what I tried to be. I tried to be that video. So when I started doing commentary, I would like try to make catchphrases. So I was just sitting there going like, oh, yo, he's so S rank, you know, and like, you know, I would like try to like yell inane stuff. And trust me, it sucked because that is just not who I am. That is not me at all. And so I realized very quickly that that was not something that I could do. And it was one of the most important lessons that I learned, is just to be myself. And so that's when all the bad puns came.
And there you go. Commentators will find their style. You found yours, which is funny because before I met you in person, I also knew about you. Like, oh man, he's a legendary commentator. Like my friends, like all knew who you were. It's like, oh yeah, the Ultra Chen, you know, James Chen and Ultra David. That's like the duo. That is the duo you get. I remember watching many tournaments with you doing commentary.
Yeah.
So actually, hindsight 2020, thank you very much for doing that.
And honestly, I do have like, is it gonna kill as a catchphrase. I didn't even realize I said that every single time. So that was a catchphrase that just happened by accident, and then people started making fun of me for saying that all the time. Because honestly, as a commentator, while you're waiting for a super to kill somebody or not kill, what the hell am I supposed to talk about? You know, like, you don't want to be like, well, so recently he got the super, because like it's a hype moment and you want to hype it up. So like, you don't want to sit there and analyze something. I can't just sit here being like, Corey.
Let's try this. Okay, there we go. Oh. Our connection was going to. I didn't hear a single thing you said because it got really.
Okay.
So I was like, let me try it again.
No, I was saying for the is it gonna kill stuff. You know, while it's happening, you know, it's a hype moment because you're wondering if the guy's going to die or not. So what am I supposed to say? You know, I never thought about it. So my comment was always, oh my God, is this going to kill? Is it going to kill?
It's very tense. It's a very tense moment. What's going to happen?
Yeah, I can't sit back all of a sudden and be like, oh, okay, so the reason why he landed the super, because that's just going to completely destroy the mood. And so I always said that because that was the only thing I could think of saying. And then I realized that it became a thing. And so I just embraced it.
I mean, here's the thing. What better phrase do you have that's gonna really convey that feeling of tension of like, yo, is this gonna kill?
Yeah.
Is this it, or is there more to come after this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the only other thing I could do is like, but I don't know if that's just gonna get annoying after a while.
Honestly, I think you're fine with just saying, "Is it gonna kill?"
Yeah.
Not only because is it now a catchphrase, but it's generally the best thing you can be saying at that moment.
And people kind of
everybody else does it.
Everyone expects it from me now, so there you go.
Yeah. What that reminds me though of, like, yes, Yipes is very, very creative and original with his catchphrases. There's many things he said, like maybe only once or twice, that have always been like left an impression on me. Like, one time, I think he was commenting Street Fighter V, and he was commenting on someone getting like kicked in the face or something. He's like, "Yeah, watch your cabeza," and I was like, that for me was just super funny to me, and I never forgot about it, even though he only said it that one time.
Right. He's the only one who can get away with a lot of that stuff and do a lot of that stuff, and he has that natural rhythm and flow. And honestly, you know, he has a background in rap. You know the Evo theme that Evo uses a lot. That was created by Red Rapper. He wanted to create a theme for Evo, so he created that. And on that rap, 3 people are actually heard on that track rapping. It's Red Rapper himself, Yipes is on there, and I believe Shiza is on there as well. I think Shiza was the third person, and again, rest in peace to Shiza. You know, passed away last year, unfortunately. But yeah, Yipes has a very strong background in rap, and that is where a lot of his power comes from, you know, because rap, especially freeform rap, is about being creative and on the fly, coming up with these kind of very melodic sounding phrases and stuff. And you know, that is where a lot of Yipes' strength comes from, in my opinion, is that he's able to say these things that are just hilarious and they flow so well. And so every time I sit there and commentate with him and listen to him when he says stuff like that, like, one of the dangers of commentating with Yipes is you can get caught listening to him and not saying anything, because you just sit there and you're like, my God, this man is a genius. You know, I mean, honestly.
He really is.
Yeah.
Just having that much creativity on such short notice.
Yeah.
You know, having that free form, that freestyle, that improvisation is very, very impressive.
Yeah, yeah. But God, how do we, like, I know we were talking about injuries. Who was the first person we were talking about getting injured on stage at Evo? Oh, Justin, that's right. Falling over.
Justin, then Yipes.
Yeah. But, you know, talking about, you know, how much, you know, the emotion and the drama, kind of jumping all the way back to there. You know, one of my favorite stories is talking about, what was it? Who was it? I think it was Rico. No, it wasn't Rico Suave. It was who was the second Evo champion for Killer Instinct? Was it? Let me see. Let me try.
Let's see.
Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct. Oh gosh, where is this information here?
I'm trying to look it up myself because I don't remember.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm so bad with my history and names and everything like that. Oh, that was the so 2016 Sleep one. What was it? 2015? Who won in 2015?
2015
was Rico Suave.
KKI in 2015 was Rico Suave.
Yeah, so 2014 the winner was CD Junior. That's who it was. It was CD Junior. Yes. So I still remember. Oh yeah, Ponder Sleuth actually just mentioned it in the chat. Thank you. CD Junior was one of the players out there who used to always just sit there and talk about like, oh, Evo is nothing, blah, blah, blah. I don't like Evo, Evo is not just another tournament or whatever. It was a lot of Triforce talk in his ear, basically. Triforce, that's what he would always kind of tell a lot of the New York players there. And I used to talk to CD Jr. on Twitter and just be like, no, winning Evo is a big deal and everything. And he would kind of argue that it wasn't. And then I still remember he won the first Killer Instinct tournament at Evo. And when he was on stage and picked up the trophy, he just started crying. Like, he just started tearing up. And he was super emotional. He was, like, shaking, lifting the trophy and everything. And, I tweeted at him afterwards. I was like, I think you know what I mean now, And that's kind of going back to that pride thing. The pride over the money is just he won that tournament. And now he knows he's always going to be in the history books for this event, except for my senile brain because I can't remember names at all or anything. But, he's always going to be in there. He's never not going to be in there. And he will always be the first Killer Instinct champion at Evo. And like I said, the emotions that you saw him going through was just, it was such a wonderful moment. It was, oh, God, like every time I think about it, I start tearing up because that's how happy I was for him to have that moment. And, that to me is one of my favorite things about the fighting game community is that, these events give people the opportunity to have these just life-changing moments for themselves. And it's fantastic. And it's something that, I do start tearing up every time I think about. So
the FGC has a lot of passion in it. And when you get a group of people with so much passion competing to be the best or prove that they're number one, you get a lot of good stories out of it. Yeah. A lot of good events, a lot of things in the history books. And yeah, like as you just said, senile brain aside, that is now recorded in history. You can find that on Wikipedia. CD Jr. did win KI, yep. And that is going to be in history.
Yep, it's going to be there forever. It's going to be there forever. So, oh man, crazy.
One of the points I wanted to talk about earlier about when we're talking about reasons when it comes to arcades, about where it was more like arcade versus arcade, then eventually grew into region versus region, and whatnot, was that back in the day wasn't like forum posts talking about like, oh man, there's this one good guy here, we're gonna get. That's all literal word of mouth. People talking about it in person about like almost like urban legend status.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we had to go off of. It would be like, yo, I heard this guy said this. Yo, I heard that guy said that. And what's funny, you talked about the urban legend status. I mean, that was such a thing. You would hear about all these great players, and that's all you could do. I know we talked about it last week about the guys who would be on Shoryuken forums saying like, I could beat Vai, I could beat John Choi, because that's what they are. They're urban legends. And one of the reasons why the Daigo parry was so ridiculous is because that was one of the first times Daigo had been to the U.S. outside of that Alpha 3 tournament versus Vai, and when he showed up to Evo, I mean, Daigo's even said this. He said it was weird. He was like, I showed up and people wanted to take pictures and they wanted autographs. He was like, that was so weird to me. Like, it just didn't make any sense to him. But, he was that guy. He was the guy that you heard about, oh, it's Daigo the Beast. It's Daigo the Beast. And he looked like he was about to be taken out by Justin Wong. So it was like, oh, maybe he is just a, urban legend. Maybe it is just hype. And then he pulled off that parry into the jump combo and killed everyone. And that's when everyone's like, nope, legit. He's a real. Legend. He's real. And that changed everything, dude. It's crazy. Saber's in the chat. Saber's in the chat. Awesome. One of the strongest Arizona players. In fact, John Crofts, has been putting out a lot of videos. One of the videos was about Saber's match versus Alex Vai in the Street Fighter 4 5v5, where he cooked Vai with his Sakura in that tournament. And,
yes.
And Saber, very, very strong player. Scott, he is even saying in the chat that people would show up to his arcade doing work then they would come and get him so that he can take them out. Yeah. See, this is what I mean. This is what it was. It's like you had your, like, those players probably didn't like losing to Saber. They probably wanted to beat Saber, but as soon as someone else from another arcade would show up, they would be like, quick, get him over here so that he can beat him up, you know, kind of thing, you know. So that's the way it worked. That's how it worked in the arcades days. And yeah, that's all you could do was word of mouth. Or you would have someone travel to another arcade. They would go to the arcade and get cooked by the local players there, and they would come back and they'd be like, holy crap, this arcade was crazy. I couldn't beat anyone there. And then the other best players would be like, huh, all right, let's go over there and see if we can take them out. And that's just kind of how it worked back then. And yeah, there was no internet. Nobody was talking trash to each other anywhere. It was like almost kind of like, I don't want to call it local gangs because, you know, that makes it sound like arcades being gangs, but I mean, that's just really kind of what it was.
It was pride in your scene, in your arcade, whatever you want to call it. It was that group pride, which is why I still really enjoy team tournaments, especially the MK versus, or the Florida versus Texas tournament, because there is definitely pride and beef they have of, like, even if within that one scene, like, all the Texas players might hate each other on any given day, they're like, no, on this day we stand united. We got to beat their ass. We got to show them who's boss.
Yeah, because a lot of it too is just, you know, if you can't beat another arcade, if you have your arcade and you're playing and you're the best in your arcade and you're doing all these crazy tricks that nobody can handle, but then there's another arcade out there that you can't beat their best players, that means that the other arcade knows more than you do. And remember, strategies and tips and stuff like that could not be spread. You know, we didn't have, like, it took a while even before stuff like FAQs would even show up. You know, like, there was no way to talk about any of these strategies to other players at all. You know, back in B3 days when Vi discovered the Vi CC, you know, he was able to save that all the way till Battle by the Bay and use it in the tournament to surprise everybody. Save that shit for nationals, you know. Nowadays, you can't do that, right? Someone finds it, someone sees it, they post about it, and then everyone analyzes it in training mode because we didn't have training mode, you know, back then. And there's already a YouTube video about it on the first day describing exactly how it works. You know, and so back then we had none of this ability to even spread that information. So if your arcade could not beat another arcade, they just knew stuff that you didn't. And that meant your arcade was lacking information. And so there is that pride. You can't let another arcade beat you because you want to be the best arcade, because that means you guys know the most about the game. And so if somebody else is beating you, that's, you know, even without openly saying it, you 100% know in your heart that they know more about the game than you did. And it was really, really tough to handle.
I want to comment on Saber's point here about, you know, how he misses the mystery. And I feel like there's 2 points on that. One, like, yeah, there's definitely lack of mystery, because as soon as something gets found, that information gets spread like wildfire, and not everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows about it. True, there's none of that, but at the same time, you could argue that because everybody knows that, that means everybody's growing exponentially faster, because they're not having this invisible barrier of, I have no idea what this thing is, I can't get better.
Yeah.
But with that said, you know how, like, oh, there's less mystery because as soon as something gets found out, we spread it. Think about this. Think about Arslan Ash in the Tekken scene, how people didn't know Pakistan was a major force in Tekken. And when Arslan Ash, I think, like, first started to go into tournaments, like, internationally, and he was watching everybody, Arslan would say, like, I'm not even the best player in Pakistan. And hearing stuff like that was mind-blowing.
Yeah. That's actually an amazing point, because that was the same thing about kind of like having some guy at some random arcade showing up. Like, we didn't even know this arcade was there, and he's like watching everybody on a global scale. That's actually such a good parallel. Like, now you picture it as a local level. That's what it was like back in the arcade days, when this guy would come wash you and then be like, I'm not even the best at my arcade. And you're like, what? How does this even happen?
Your arcade?
Yeah, that's actually, that's such a cool a juxtaposition that you caught there, dude. That's awesome. But you know, I do like the fact that we are in this age where, you know, information does spread a lot faster so that we can get there. And, you know, it's tricky because before, that's kind of what promoted the, you know, I want to beat Daigo mentality as opposed to I just want to have a photo with Daigo, the fan kind of mentality, is because in the arcades, you did feel like you were the best in the world. So you wanted to beat everybody. I talked about this, I think, a little bit last week, you know, that everybody wants to start off by doing all the things that Justin did in Street Fighter 4. Like, I want to do the one-frame links. And nowadays, it's less like that because people recognize that these are the best players because it is a global phenomenon now. So, you know, while it's cool because now people really know and respect the people who are the best, at the same time, I almost kind of feel like it's too much. You know what I mean? Like, I still want you to go into a tournament wanting to beat Justin's ass. But, you know, if you lose to him, you'll be like, okay, shake his hand. And, you know, okay, yeah, he is really good, you know,
well,
kind of thing.
Of course I lost. It was Justin Wong. Duh. You know. Yeah. I agree with that. I feel like I wish there was a bit more passion of everybody always wanting to strive to be the best. But then again, you know, pop monsters are pop monsters. You know, there's sometimes people who are there who want to enter for the sake of just being in the tournament, for being included. They don't care about winning or losing. They're here to have a good time. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, absolutely. And having that experience is so enjoyable. And honestly, the best way to get better at tournaments and learning how to, you know, handle those nerves is just to keep playing in them, and you'll surprise yourself and you'll just have a great time doing it as well. You know, a lot of people, that's one of the number one questions people always ask me is, how do I get over tournament nerves? And my answer always is, you don't.
You just keep putting yourself in that situation until you eventually get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you in the San Diego scene, whenever you played Street Fighter, you have your roadblock, obviously, in the form of Mr. Richard Klink, right? So SD Pinoy kind of getting in your way. But, I mean, you get in second place all the time, right? You get second place in a lot of the Street Fighter 5 tournaments out there and everything like that. But I can probably say that all of the matches that you play with everybody, you're still kind of nervous every time you play, right?
Yeah, it's because I feel like I have enough respect for people where because here's the thing, even if I almost consistently get second place, that doesn't mean it's easy. There are definitely other good players in San Diego, and it's never like completely free. Yeah, I still get nerves. I still get nervous. There are still gonna be moments where after a win, I'm like, I just need like a good 30 seconds to just sit here. I'm not moving from the setup yet. Give me a second to recover.
Exactly.
I'll get out of the way in a minute. Just give me a second.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing. So again, you know, even if you don't expect yourself to do well, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be playing in these tournaments. You should definitely still be playing and having a good time as much as you can. So
yeah. And honestly, especially now that we're in quarantine, I miss locals. I miss locals so bad right now.
I can't say anything because even before we were quarantined, I wasn't going to locals just because I was such an introvert and I just like, it's so far, I don't want to go. But most of the time I ended up going to Wednesday night fights was because like Olaf would be like, I'll drive you. And I'm like, okay. But, you know, the worst thing about it, too, is as soon as this quarantine started is when I told myself, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start going back to Wednesday night fights because I want to commentate again and all this stuff like that. And then the quarantine happened and I was like, man. But, you know, that makes it easy for me to say, right? I can say I would have went if it wasn't for the quarantine, but there probably would have been a lot of days where I would have been like, yeah, I'm going to stay home.
I mean, there's a lot of days I stay at home and I don't go to Wednesday night fights. In fact, I try to go maybe once a month because it is like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive for me.
Right.
Which I already know there's going to be someone coming in the woodwork right now saying, well, I have to drive 4 hours to go to my local every week. So, but yeah. It's a long time. My local is only about 10-15 minutes away from me. That's every week or every 2 weeks.
Gotcha. Is that the one
I tried to go that one.
Is that the one that like Cody puts on or?
Yep. That's Cody's. It's called TTF. If you guys are ever in San Diego and you want to play games, it is very grassroots in regards to it is literally in someone's house. There's not a professional venue or anything like that. We're just in someone's house. We're just gonna play until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And I like that. I actually really like that. That's so. Sorry, slight side note, that is actually why Combo Breaker is literally my favorite event. It's because throughout the day, it's like a professional esports event. You have, the stream crews, you have the stage, everything, and then after hours, it's just grassroots. You see some people chugging a beer, just everyone crowding around a setup, watching people play games. Someone's playing Street Fighter 4, someone's playing Marvel 3, someone's playing Super Turbo. It can be literally anything, and it feels really like at home. Like I'm just up until 4 a.m. just playing games with some random guys in like someone's basement almost.
Yeah, and again, kind of 2 points on that. One, that's why Combo Breaker is the greatest like player tournament that exists. Everything feels very natural and homegrown. It is it's one of the big esportsy events with the least esports feel, and that's intentional. Rick does a good job keeping it feel very community based and everything. But, speaking to Cody's house, just going to somebody's house and playing and everything. I mean, that's where it's such an interesting thing, because as the arcade started dying, it was the birth of so many of the fighting game scenes that we have. Wednesday night fights literally came from Shiggle BMX, right? So there's this guy in down in Southern California who's like, I just turned my garage. Here's 4 stations. We all gather and we play in my garage. I mean, the guy, he had to start charging venue fees because his electric bill just like skyrocketed through the roof, and it was every Wednesday night. He would gather people. It's where Andy OCR, Tatsu, and Warrock first developed their skills. It's where Shiza first developed his skills. And it was just a gathering place for everyone to play. And this is part of that, what I said about the East Coast, West Coast rivalry thing. If you don't mind me tangenting into this story, I can definitely
This is what the point of the stream is. Go for it.
So here's the thing, right? When Street Fighter 4 first came out, there was West Coast and East Coast. Everyone's like, oh my God, Justin's the best. And over here on the West Coast, it was like, oh, Mike Ross, Gutex, Combo Fiend, these guys are the best. And, SoCal, we definitely had the benefit of having arcades with more than one Street Fighter 4 machine. Those things were expensive. So if anyone could get the Street Fighter 4 machines, it was super rare. So in Chinatown Fair, they had one machine, and you could only have a max of like a 3 or a 4 or 5 game win streak, and then it would kick both people off, and then you had to jump back to the end of the line again and wait 2 hours. And so when someone out there ran a tournament, I think it was called Sensation, in the East Coast, Gutex, Mike Ross, and Combo Fiend all flew out there to play, and they washed everybody on the East Coast. Like, I think it was Mike Ross who beat Justin Wong, or Combo Fiend beat Justin Wong or whatever. And so afterwards, the West Coast was like, yo, we're the best. Like, this is clearly, we are the best. And I think like first, second, third might have all been Combo Fiend, Mike Ross, and Gutex at that, for that tournament or something. They got most of the top spots for that tournament. And so what happened was West Coast started resting on their laurels a little bit, and East Coast was like, nah. And the game came out on the home system, so so now they had the opportunity to play it more, because honestly the East Coast was definitely hamstrung by the fact that they had very rare machines to practice on. They couldn't practice for long sets. And then when it came out, Gutex started bar fights. He did a bar fights too, and he invited the 5 players from the East Coast to play against the 5 players from the West Coast. It was like Edma and Combo Fiend and Alex Vi, versus like Sanford and L.I. Joe and Justin Wong and Arturo and everything. We lost 5-0. We got washed. And it wasn't even close. It was 5-0, and we looked like chumps. And then West Coast started making all the excuses, like, well, actually, we have all these up-and-comers. Yeb, you probably know about, right? Because
I know.
Yeah, he's a San Diego player. It's like Yeb and all these other guys are like, no, like, play these guys instead, right? And East Coast was like, yo, we washed you already. Why do we want to even play this, right? Why would we even want to do this? We already won. And they were like, no, you have to, because our pride was hurt. We were super sore about it. And so East Coast finally agreed by making it so that all 5 of the East Coast players got to play a secondary character. So they didn't play their main character. So if they lost, we wouldn't know if it was truly better or not because, they were using their secondary character. We lost 5-0 against their secondary characters. This includes Sanford Kelly playing Dan. Okay? We lost 5-0 again. We got washed. And it was that moment that I'm pretty sure, and I know Vi is not in the chat right now, but I'm pretty sure that was the moment where Vi said, "What the hell?" And I can't let this happen to SoCal, because right after that happened, he started going to Shiggle BMX's garage to play with everybody, and then started setting up the good person station versus the other stations, and he would go there and start giving lessons. That's when Edma showed up and just told everybody they sucked. He was like, all of you people are bad at this game. And so Vi really kind of took it upon himself to grow a new SoCal scene. And yeah, there were band matches because the garage started getting so full that basically those who went 0-2 had to play band matches, and whoever lost got kicked out and couldn't come back the next week so that, we could have more people in the garage. And that was the way that we determined who could actually show up. And
I never knew that.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And one of the most famous band matches, and sorry for putting his name on blast, was a Sherry Jennings versus Wonder Chef match, and Sherry Jennings got Wonder Chef banned for a week, and there was a lot of and so I think Vi took a lot of pride to grow SoCal, and that's when he started going there every week. He turned it into a system. AJ Papa decided to start streaming there. I started commentating there, and that's what slowly turned into Wednesday night fights at like a Dave & Buster's. That's where it came from, and it happened because of the East Coast West Coast rivalry. If it wasn't for that rivalry, it wasn't for us getting washed by East Coast like that, I don't know if the history of SoCal fighting games would be completely different. Because that's when Vi made friends with Sakata, with AJ Papa, with Shingen, and with Shin JN. Like, that's where that kind of all grew from. And then there was the SoCal circuit that Vi created that took place at Sakata's house all the way out in what city is that? It's Moreno Valley, like way out in Moreno Valley. But that's where he had the 5 players audition for each area. There was the West LA area, there was the Irvine area, there was the Valley area, and then there was the 5v5 that they all played. Then I was on the West LA team, actually. I made it on the West LA team. I remember eventually losing to Mike Ross in that tournament at the House of Sakata. And in fact, I think that's like the House of Sakata is where the No You May Not Sherry versus Marn thing came from.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that with Marn?
Yeah, that was with Marn, yeah. And
dude, sorry, slight aside, just because I feel I have to point this out. I had never thought about the history of the rebirth of the FGC with Street Fighter 4. I had never really thought about it because for me in my mind, because that's when I entered, I was like, oh, that's still new stuff. That's not like history. And I'm thinking like, no, that's history now. I never knew that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. No, Street Fighter. I mean, let me. I guess as another kind of aside, obviously that became Wednesday Night Fights, etc., and that specialist tournament, that California tournament, is what taught me to play a stick on my lap as well. I used to play on the ground all the time, but for the tournament to get on the West LA team, it was played outside in a parking lot, like in the parking overhang of an apartment building, and the ground was full of oil stains and everything. And I was like, God damn it, I have to play on a chair now, and I couldn't do that. And I forced myself to learn after that. But going back to the history of Street Fighter 4, you know, if you came in '09, you know, there's a reason why people call it the Dark Ages before that. And, you know, again, a lot of people get mad at that because Guilty Gear, Tekken, they were all still making games and everything like that. But honestly, like, you just never expected any more fighting games. It wasn't really a big deal. Nobody ever really talked about it. EVO was such a niche thing. It was a small thing. Nobody covered EVO. You know, nobody cared about EVO. It was just this little side thing. And, you know, the reaction to Street Fighter 4, and again, one of the key factors was they brought back all original of the 8 characters. That was one of the key factors involved because everybody remembers Blanca and Guile and Chun-Li and Ken and Ryu and Dalsum and Zangief. That was such a key thing. I still remember... because Seth Killian was now involved, they did this crazy Street Fighter 4 launch party in downtown Los Angeles. And I remember going to that event and seeing a line stretched all the way around the block. And some people had been sitting there for a day just to make sure they could get in and play. And I can't even explain to people the juxtaposition of what I knew about the hype for Street Fighter to seeing that. It was such a shock to me. Like, it blew my mind. I could not process how excited people were for this event. And it was just a launch event. I could not fathom it because Street Fighter 4 was in the arcades already. And it wasn't that big of a deal, but like the fact that this was coming out on the home consoles and everything and seeing this line and just like, I didn't believe there were this many people who cared about Street Fighter 4 in Southern California at all. And this line was gigantic. And like I said, the day before that, if you told me how long of a line there would be to get into this event, I would have said, huh, what line? You know, that's how I would have thought about it. But then when I showed up, I mean, I was obviously VIP, so I just got in. So, you know, that's how it works. No, it's good.
It's not important, James. We get it, all right?
But honestly, like, to see what it looked like and to see that line and to see how many people were hyped and how excited everybody was inside that venue, like, literally was one of the biggest shocks that I've ever had in regards to fighting games. I mean, that's how much of a resurgence it was. I like I said, I went from 2008 of EVO, which I nearly retired from the FGC after that year because I just saw it was dead. Like, I was like, this is it, we're done. You know, I don't see any new faces. It's all the same people. And then a bunch of people who have disappeared because they've gotten jobs and they realize this is nothing. And then we did EVO 2009 with the grand finals of Justin versus Daigo. And then I was like, I can't quit now because this is amazing. I mean, the transition between 2008 and 2009, like, people probably know the history that 2009 was the resurgence, but they don't realize the extent of the resurgence. Like, it wasn't even just like, okay, it got bigger and EVO got bigger. No, it literally just went from like nothing to like everything. It was crazy, man.
It was like Big Bang, dude. Just like there's like barely anything there. It was, you know, whispers, you know, peanuts, bro.
Yeah.
And then bam.
It's so crazy. And so a lot of people, you know, who do try to downplay how big the resurgence was in 2009 and how much it was kind of the dark ages before. I mean, again, I'm not trying to disrespect the other scenes, but it was such a different feel between 2008 and 2009. Everything changed. And as soon as Street Fighter 4 became popular, that's when every company was like, maybe we should make fighting games again. You know, because...
Another point I want to make with, you know, the end of the Dark Ages, you know, people are always going to say, well, there's other games, they're still being, you know, they're still out, there are other scenes still being active, you know, it's like you're dismissing all that. But no, it's a big deal because basically Street Fighter was dormant. A huge, massive IP that has massive worldwide recognition was completely dormant as a scene. You only had the regulars who are dwindling over time coming in. All of a sudden, Street Fighter 4 comes out. and this is in the age of the internet, right? Where now we have online play,
Yeah.
where now it's like, and now it's in your home, and you can play against everybody across the world.
Yeah.
And it came out at a time where everyone's like, I know what Street Fighter is. You
Yep.
know, that's a big deal. So everybody started playing it again, even casually. You know, they might not have kept playing it, but everybody got on it.
Yeah.
Everybody got on it. And because everybody got on it, there was a significant growth of, regular players, people who kept playing after that, because now there's a huge scene that came up out of nowhere.
Yeah, and one of the, I know Seth Killen he always deflects the credit, but a lot of the credit goes to him. I've heard stories about the stuff that he made Street Fighter 4 developers do, and to make it feel as old school as possible. And honestly, like, I give him so much credit, because what was the fighting game that we got from Capcom before Street Fighter 4? It was Capcom Fighting Jam, which was the biggest, most recycled game ever, and it was just, oh god, it was just such a...
I thought it was HDR.
Well, okay, yeah, HDR came out right before Street Fighter 4, and HDR it was such a perfect timing for that game too, because one, it was a classic game, and two, it came out before Street Fighter 4, so a lot of people who are just all of a sudden now super eager for Street Fighter 4 got HDR just to, here we go, let's get this and bide our time before we get to Street Fighter 4.
It was the appetizer.
Yeah, so it was an appetizer. So people in the chat are asking if HDR gets any credit. I don't know if it was necessarily gets any of the credit, but it definitely, helped ramp up everything to everybody playing this. And yeah, so like I said, I really do honestly feel like Seth Killing gets a lot of credit for this. And, just to go from something like Capcom Fighting Jam to now this new game, which brought back all of our old favorite characters and, added these weirdos in the game. But like, we were all just so happy to play these old characters. That was one of the reasons why Street Fighter 3 was not successful. In fact, Ryu and Ken weren't even supposed to be in the game.
They only got added after location testing.
Yeah, Alex was supposed to be the new main character of the game. And it was just supposed to be a whole new generation. That's why it was called New Generations. And it was supposed to be a whole new set of brand new characters. But then, yeah, when everyone played it, they were like, where's Ryu and Ken? Where's Chun-Li? Where's all these characters? And so, kind of as a bone, they put in Ryu and Ken back into the game. I think Sean was supposed to really be the only Shoto that was in the game. And
wow, and that's so funny to think about, too.
Yeah, and I think that's why they put Ryu and Ken in, because they could use a lot of Sean's artwork, just to kind of to make Ryu and Ken in there. And then they weren't even. And so Street Fighter 3, like, as much as everybody likes to talk about how much they love Third Strike, and Third Strike is the god amongst all, when Street Fighter 3 came out in the arcade, nobody played it. Nobody played that. Nobody played Second Impact. Nobody played Third Strike. Street Fighter was mostly just like whatever at that time. People weren't interested in Street Fighter 3 because none of the characters that they knew were in it. Like, it wasn't that popular. It was actually pretty dead compared to a lot of things. Third Strike, yeah, did come out as a bad time, and even, Saber in the chat is saying Street Fighter 3 was a huge flop. And yeah, by all standards, it was a massive flop because it came out and it was all these resources and stuff, and nobody really cared about the game all that much. Fighting games weren't popular, and it didn't have that nostalgia factor. So when Street Fighter 4 came out and it had all these characters back in there, man, it was just like, it was such an important thing. And yeah, we had like CVS 1 and CVS 2, but those were all like reused sprites again. And, it never
Rematch type games.
Yeah, it never felt like a new thing. And so when Street Fighter 4 came out and it was 3D graphics and it was played in a 2D plane still. And yes, Street Fighter 4 is ugly, and it was even ugly back then. But it was still cool to see Street Fighter 4 in this new generation of gaming. Now you had the cool ultras where you zoomed in on people, and while a lot of people hated the canned animations of ultras, I still remember the first bar fights for that Gutex ran. A lot of people there watching weren't players, and this is a testament to how much graphics and visuals means something to people. So for those of us who played Street Fighter 4, we know that Ken uppercut FADC into Shinryuken really wasn't worth it because the Shinryuken did very little damage in that situation.
Didn't go into the cinematic, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I think it was Edma who was playing Ken at the time. He had a match versus Combo Fiend, and they're playing against each other, and he needed a comeback. And he did uppercut, dash forward, FADC into Shinryuken, and a lot of the people watching, as soon as they saw the Ultra activate and it zooms in on Ken's face, and he's like, you heard the audience all go, oh! You know, but then all, like, the professionals were like, this is not worth it. You know, but that kind of presentation added to the flair and the drama of the game and gave people reason to be hype about stuff because it looked dramatic and it was so cool. And Street Fighter 4 really kind of ushered fighting games into that kind of era, which, you know, for Street Fighter, obviously Tekken's been around forever. Tekken 5 is still a beautiful game and everything like that. But, you know, in terms of Street Fighter, and again, last week I mentioned that Street Fighter is the game that had the cultural impact. For people to see Street Fighter presented in this way with their favorite characters was such a big deal. And I will never forget that moment where Ed did that uppercut FADC into Ultra and the audience just all erupted, because in my brain I was like, that's not worth it. But then I saw how everybody got excited, and it made me realize how important, you know, the presentation and you know, this kind of factor into fighting games. And it really has changed the way that I looked at it. You know, when you talk about games like MVCI and KOF 14 being ugly ass games, I totally get it why people hate those games. You know, I'm sad that it happened, but presentation is super, super important.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things from Street Fighter 4 still, in that similar vein, anytime a Rufus did Ultra on stream. You
had the raise the roof moment, dude.
Everybody raised the roof.
Yeah.
And so, like, I feel like that was a very special time because I was also like, I was a high schooler when Street Fighter 4 came out. I was 8th grade all the way until until I was like a freshman in college when I played Street Fighter 4. That was a very pivotal moment for me of like just being exposed to this kind of culture, that kind of audience, and everything was exciting. Everything was really, really exciting at the time of Street Fighter 4 to me.
Yeah, and
wow.
And you know, you had talked about that passion and stuff, you know, and one of the things that always reminds me is every time I tell people why they should go to EVO, it's just when you end up at EVO and you're in the audience and you have an audience of thousands of people and they're all cheering for the same things you're cheering for, when most of your life you spend that most people have no idea why what you're watching is super cool. It's just such a magical moment. You know, when someone pulls off like the most crazy shimmy and then everyone's like, oh my God, or when like Tokido ends a round by doing taunt combo in the uppercut and everyone's like, oh my God, like just having a whole arena full of everybody just gushing about the same thing you are is just, it's just an unforgettable moment, you know.
Wow. No, I want to say thank you because I actually haven't thought about those times of when I just entered the scene around like Street Fighter 4 era so much recently. I'm like, wow, those are really, really exciting times. Everything felt really new and fresh to me.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool to be a part of that. I was gonna quickly talk about like, you know, what I'd say are the three big majors of the US, right? We got EVO. Or actually, you told me about this one. Yeah, we got EVO, which is, you know, it's like fighting game Olympics basically. That's where everybody goes to prove they're the best in the world. You have Combo Breaker, which I felt was like the most grassroots event, you know, where everybody goes to have a fun time and you know just play like in the old days. And then CEO, which is a celebration of Jabali. I found out recently, foreign players, or at least the Japanese, they love CEO. They told me they straight up CEO is their favorite event.
Oh, really? That's awesome, dude. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I always said that, you know, EVO is a celebration of fighting games, Combo Breaker is the celebration of community, and CEO is the celebration of Jabali. I've even told that to Jabali, and he was like, yeah. But What is it that they love about CEO so much?
They like the presentation. They said it feels very American to them. That's all like pro wrestling style, and it's very like over the top. They're like, they love that.
Okay, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. No, because I know the Japanese players love going to CEO in droves. So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I mean, again, I rib Jabali a lot in that situation, but honestly, what he's created with CEO is wonderful because, same thing with Rick. Rick is about the grassroots kind of thing, and so that's the focus. Jabali is about the spectacle and the wrestling, and he loves wrestling, and so he integrated that. That's why I love ECT. I was so looking forward to going to my first ECT this year because it was going to be a, stop on the CPT, I believe, and they've integrated it with the music stuff that they've been doing. That's what I love to see what TOs do is when they integrate their event with, something of their own passion. And that always makes me excited. I don't know if I could ever properly run a fighting game tournament with a Tetris theme, but, I'd have to think about maybe I could make it work or something. But,
we need a puzzle game event. We need a puzzle game Evo. All right, we need to have a Tetris tournament. Hey, if Tetris is the focus, awesome. But we need side terms for Puyo Puyo. We need side terms for Dr. Mario, columns. Whatever you can think of. We need a puzzle game tournament.
I've actually told that to the guys who run CTWC. I said that should be your goal. I was like, you need to create the PGC, the puzzle game community, and eventually just start creating the Evo of this kind of thing with all the different events. I told them that should be their end goal, and not the important thing about that is then they could also expand it to the modern Tetris games so that the Tetris company has more investment to to put money into it. Because if it's classic Tetris, they can't sell new Tetris, new NES Tetrises, and so it's not necessarily something for them to invest in. But if we're having tournaments on that and on Tetris 99, then you kind of give the Tetris company reasons to sponsor and things like that. But I've been wanting a PGC, and people have been trying to do that. There was one event that was going to be run this year that they invited me to that was supposed to take place this month. Needless to say, it got canceled, but it was going to be a puzzle game tournament. There was going to be a puzzle game tournament here. Unfortunately, it was going to be the same weekend as something else, so I don't think I was going to be able to make it to it. But now, obviously, I can't make it to anything. So there you go.
Yep. No, I would love to see a puzzle game tournament. Honestly, like I'm sorry to I'll go slightly off topic again, but just thinking about the sheer amount of people who know you from commentating the Tetris like finals, right? Was it the World Championships?
Classic Tetris World Championships, yes.
There are so many people who know you for that who might not even know you for fighting games, and that is still crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I've always known you for fighting games.
There was this weird, I don't even know what it was, like a Spanish gaming Facebook page or something like that just posted it on Facebook, and it went super viral on Facebook, and I had so many people on my Facebook message me and be like, is that you, James, on there that I hadn't heard from in forever, and nobody's ever talked to me about fighting games, but the Tetris thing, sure, there they were. So, oh man,
that's crazy. That's awesome for me to think about that.
It's weird,
because I've known only in the past few years that you're really, really, really knowledgeable about Tetris. And I watched streams a few times. And it's just crazy. It's crazy seeing how skilled and how knowledgeable you are about that game. Coming from someone who's only known you for the fighting game stuff, and seeing how your commentary works very well for Tetris as well, and how you're very good at teaching Tetris.
Yeah.
It was very fun to watch you play Tetris for the first time, me watching you for the first time, because you explained very, very concisely what you're doing and why you're doing certain things.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So
I actually want to do a bunch of educational Tetris streams because there's actually tools out there that might actually be able to help me with that. So I'm kind of excited for that. But but yeah, it's weird that Tetris is the first thing that got me on TV for commentary, and I've gotten to interact with Ming Na Wen now. So
Yeah, the actress of Chun-Li from the Street Fighter movie knows you as the Tetris guy now.
Oh dang, 17 hits. You've been to Portland Retro Gaming Expo. But we've never ran into each other. That sucks. That's sad to hear. But hopefully, obviously it was supposed to take place in the summer this year. They were moving the Portland Retro Gaming Expo from October to the summer. So CTWC was going to take place in the summer this year. However, I think PRGE got canceled again due to COVID and stuff. So, but yeah, it's definitely wrecking a lot of things here, unfortunately. So
that's unfortunate. Yep, lot of events are getting kind of canned. It's funny because this is the year I wanted to go to actual gaming events that weren't FGC events. That's what I decided. I was like, I want to go to Retro Gaming Expo. I want to go to MagFest because apparently people keep saying it's really good, and I wanted to go to an AGDQ because I'm like, that sounds like a really fun time.
Yeah. AGDQ is a celebration of video games because video games have always been a very talented thing, and so AGDQ is like the extreme of that. I've never been to a MagFest, but Portland Retro Gaming Expo is, I'm sure for you, as a person who loves history and stuff, you walk around the like, it's basically half arcade and half just sales area. And you go in the sales area and you will find like Intellivisions and ColecoVisions and Atari 2600s for sale. All these things that are older than you, consoles that are older than you.
All of that 80s wood finish, dude.
Oh yeah, the 80s wood finish. Oh man. But yeah, back to fighting games, I guess.
Yeah, back to fighting games, man. We've jumped from topic to topic multiple times. I don't feel at all bothered by it. I just I thought about wow, we went from arcade history to 09er history to we have jumped topics, right. But it's all history nonetheless, and I find it absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the people in the chat don't mind that we jump around, dude. 17 hits mentions the Vectrex. Wow.
The Vectrex, dude. That was the first vector graphic gaming system, right?
Like the home gaming system, yeah. It was a style of in fact, I think one of the very first games ever created, Space War, was vector graphics, but it was definitely the first home console that could actually do that because we're at polygons right now. What's actually really funny about it is it's actually kind of gone full circle because a lot of the first video games created were vector based, more like the Star Wars kind of game. But when you sit there and you play Asteroids, like if you ever go to any of those barcades and you play Asteroids, you'll notice that the game is very bright. Like when you shoot the shots, they're very bright. And everything is just kind of like polygon shapes and stuff. That's what vector graphics was. A lot of the original games started through vector graphics, and then it eventually just moved to sprite-based. And then eventually sprite-based graphics got replaced by 3D graphics, because it was easier to do that way. And so it kind of went full circle in a weird way. So... Man.
That is very, very interesting. Just I love learning about the arcade history as well. I know we talked about even Pong, last time with quarters. Yeah, how the machine was just chock full of quarters. The machine broke down.
Shout outs to Cone, by the way. He says the very first video game was on an oscilloscope, is what it was. Yeah, that was a space war where basically you just had two ships and you just tried to shoot each other, and that was it. That was the whole thing.
I thought the very first oscilloscope game was like a tennis type game. It wasn't distributed. Just some guy made it.
I'm not sure, actually. I'd have to go and look that up now. I'd have to go and find out, unless someone in the chat knows the actual thing. I thought Space War was actually the first, video game, and then Pong was the first arcade game. Oh, okay, so you might be right then. So
Space War was the first arcade game, actually. Yeah, Space War was the first arcade game.
Okay, so Cone is saying that there was some sort of tennis thing. So there you go. See, this is what I mean. You are such a history sponge. You have more accurate history knowledge than I do. Man, I'm going to start asking you questions about, old school video games here.
Hey, that's just because I study up on the things that are documented. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing is we're talking about things that are not documented, James, and you are the person who knows all of that stuff. There's so much of our history, of our gaming, of our culture's gaming history that is not documented, and you hold all that knowledge.
I mean, like I said, as much knowledge as I hold, it's still got so many blind spots in there too, because like I said, mine is such a SoCal focused look. And not only that, but it is also a very Street Fighter focused look. You know, like if I wanted to talk about Tekken, I would have to bring in I'd have to bring in Castel to talk about a lot of the Tekken history. I'd have to bring in Henry Sen or Arturo to talk about the New York history. You know, heck, I could even bring in Saber and he could talk about Arizona history of the FGC. You know, it'd be interesting to find. I mean, I have all the B5 VHSs. I have all these tapes and everything still. So it's pretty crazy that they're all still in a closet somewhere here. In fact, there was some stuff that I had promised that I would bring out of the closet just like to grab, like just to show people and stuff. I'll have to think about that one of these days. Yeah, No Frills podcast is great for East Coast history as well. So 1958 oscilloscope tennis game, huh? Dang, okay, that's even way earlier than I knew about. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, video game history actually goes pretty far back. I actually have a documentary in my YouTube playlist of video game documentaries. If you ever wanna watch it.
That's so cool.
Anyway.
That's so cool. Oh yeah, there you go. Look at this oscilloscope. I'm just looking at the pictures. It looks like those radars that you used to see on old, you know, the little beep beep radars. You know, that's
like on a
basically what it
submarine or
looks like.
something. Yeah. So one point I actually did want to discuss, because especially considering we keep talking about a home console, arcade, home port, whatever, was so back in the Street Fighter 2 days, you know, early 90s. Tell me about home ports.
Oh boy, yeah. When Street Fighter 2 first came out on the Super Nintendo, like I'll just like, it was not accurate. It was not arcade accurate. It was differently a port. It was a version. But at the same time, it was like the greatest gift to all fighting game players, because the Super Nintendo had 6 buttons and it was shockingly close. Because back then, you just never expected the arcade and the home version to be the same at all. Like, people who grew up on the NES and know about games like Bionic Commando, Section Z, all these games like that, and
what about Ninja Turtles Arcade on the NES? That's the same thing, right?
Oh, jeez. Ninja Turtles on the arcade was such a... I mean, it was so bad compared to the actual game in the arcade. Like, you just accepted the fact way back then when... Oh, that's a great topic, Kigar. Actually, write that one down, Corey. We'll talk about that in the next episode. We'll talk about it because that's a big story right there.
Yes, that is a big story.
But a lot of the times, you know, you played these games that, you know, you didn't realize that the arcade version was entirely different. Like, we know Contra from the NES. We know these games from the NES now. And in fact, a game like Bionic Commando arguably was better on the NES than it was in the arcade, because the arcade was a very different kind of style. You made a game, we talked about it, that it was designed to eat your quarters, right? It was designed to be hard and steal your quarters and stuff. And games were entirely different. You just didn't expect them to be the same when they came home. And so I still remember the first time I saw a magazine with Street Fighter 2 on the SNES, I was looking at it and it only dawned on me that it was the SNES version, not the arcade version, like after a few minutes of looking at it. And I was like, oh my god, these graphics are insane. But you just accepted the fact that you played the home version and it wasn't the same. And you didn't care because it was just awesome to have something like that at home. You know, when Mortal Kombat 2 first showed up on the SNES, it was beautiful. But, you know, my friend didn't like it because it just wasn't accurate. Like, if Katana did the fan wave, Raiden in the arcade just could do, you know, and I would actually hit Katana out of it. But on the SNES version, if you did it, he would get hit by the wave and get floated up. And he was like, what? This is not accurate at all, you know, and you just accepted that. And it wasn't until Alpha 1 that we actually got an arcade accurate home version where you could count on things that happened at home to actually play the same in the arcade. And so it was just like, I mean, when Super Street Fighter 2 came out on the SNES and it had the weird, everyone sounds like they're in a tin can voice, you know, like it just sounded like really weird. But again,
really muffled and weird.
Yeah, and again, it just wasn't accurate. you know, and that was the thing. It's like, it's so crazy. And again, Alpha 1 was the first Street Fighter fighting game that had a training mode, and there were no options in that training mode. There were 0 options in that training mode. And so, you know, it was, yeah, we couldn't practice at home. You just played a different version. But it's weird because, like, nowadays, like, you have one inaccuracy and people are like, this is unacceptable. I refuse, like, this cannot be. Like, but back then, you didn't even bat an eye that it wasn't accurate. You just accepted that that's the way you were literally playing a different version, and just happy enough. Me and my brother spent hundreds of hours playing Street Fighter 2 on the SNES. And we didn't care that it wasn't accurate. We were just happy that we had this version that we could play, you know, and nothing was that exact anyway. So it was close enough, you know. We didn't know about how exact everything was, and we didn't care that you couldn't do all the exact same things. It was close enough, and that was fine.
Well, I guess that's also another question, right? Is, you know, because of the internet, it's like, first off, how much of arcade Street Fighter 2 did people really know about the in-depth mechanics and, you know, what was actually happening, and how could somebody tell that Street Fighter 2 on console at the time either had or didn't have those things? Like, how would you catch those things?
Yeah, and you know, the answer is it really only mattered to those people who were the experts. You know, only the experts would be able to tell you the difference between all these different things, like Guile's close-up medium punch. He didn't do the little uppercut punch. He just like did this little extra punch. And like they had to save on a lot of frames, and a lot of the moves weren't accurate. And you know, I knew these things, and so you lost certain weapons that actually were very valuable to the top highest levels. But if you were just a casual player, it was the exact same thing, and it didn't matter. So yeah, back then most people wouldn't have been able to actually tell you any differences. You know, they just wouldn't have cared. Guile's, for example, his far jab in Street Fighter 2 was the stupid jab that reached way, like Guile like leaned so far forward that jab times 7 was a legit combo and was actually a redizzy. So if you actually knocked someone stunned, if you timed it right, you could go jab, 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 jab. They'd fall dizzy. And you'd walk up and go jab, 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 jab. And then they'd fall dizzy, and then you could kill them. Like, it was, but like on the home version, they had to save animation. So he had only one jab animation. So he didn't have that combo. And, you know, it's just like all these little things. Like Guile has never had his far jab ever come back in Street Fighter 2 because that move was super broken.
So what you're telling me is Guile deserves what's going on in that box art right now.
Yes, absolutely. Dude, Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo, dude, because that was so accurate to the arcade one, it was a life-changing experience. Absolutely was. Once we started getting to the point where the games at home could be replicated like the games in the arcade, I'll tell you, when Alpha 1 came out on the Sega Saturn, I can't even tell you how much, like the training mode had no options. You couldn't change the computer to never block. You couldn't change it to do anything. Like, you couldn't set yourself up with infinite super meter, I don't think. I think you just had to, like, build the meter up and try the combo again. And it was just as bare bones as you could possibly imagine a training mode. Like, nowadays, if that training mode came out on any fighting game, like, everybody would riot. Because it was so inadequate. But I cannot tell you how many hours I spent in that training mode and how much I learned about that game anyway. It had all the same glitches. Like Saddam had a glitch that if you swept him or if you knocked him down, the way Alpha worked is when you knocked somebody over, they couldn't be juggled after they reached the apex of their reel. They would get hit and then they would come down and they couldn't be juggled anymore. Saddam was glitched in that he could be juggled even as he was about to hit the ground. And so you could do a bunch of combos on Saddam that you couldn't do against a bunch of other characters. That was replicated on the home version, so I was able to do all that stuff there as well. And yeah, the fact that we had an arcade accurate with even a terrible training mode was the greatest thing I could ever ask for. Because when I played on the Super Nintendo, I practiced all of my combos with my foot. I would literally have one of the SNES pads on the floor with my foot on down back, like ready to hit down back. And then when I hit jump fierce on the enemy, I would push my foot down to go to down back to see if I got the combo right. That's how I made it block for me. Like I would do jump fierce with Guile and then immediately hit down back with my toe, with my big toe, and then start doing the combo to see if I could actually do the combo. That's how we did training mode back then. And I did that in versus mode by putting myself to the lowest handicap setting and the opponent to the highest handicap setting, turning off the timer so that the enemy could last as long as possible and take as little damage as possible. And that's what I would do. Literally, that's how I did training mode on the SNES days.
The extent players had to go through, the extent you had to go through to do that, I was gonna go, oh my god. Oh my god.
I mean, that really is some barefoot in the snow, you know, uphill both ways.
All hell.
That is definitely, I mean, that is what I had to do. That's literally what I had to do in order to practice these fighting games, man. I mean, that's how crazy it was.
There weren't the resources or the options to do. There weren't the tools to do that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's such a crazy time to think about. Also, Street Fighter 2's weird ass mechanics like random damage, random stun, random.
Yeah. Dude, it's so funny too because and here I am today making tweets where I'm like, I really wish Street Fighter V would add these features in here into their training mode. And Street Fighter V has one of the greatest training modes in existence currently, you know, and I'm so spoiled even though I knew what it was like blocking with my toes. Oh man.
Wow. So we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm actually struggling to find a topic that's not going to take us too far down the road. Because God, there's so many more topics we could talk about. There's so much to still discuss. Do we want to go into the Tomohiro story, or do you think that's already overly discussed?
Let's save that for next week because I can tell my Tomo stories. And I've told it before on videos before, like in interviews and everything like that. But I think it would be fun to tell on this story and tell on this podcast as well, just to have it officially documented how I met Tomo and what my first interaction with Tomo was, because it was really fun and fascinating. So, and then oh god, yeah, playing on the SNES. One of the fun things. Do you know about the Game Genie?
Yes, I do. Game Genie, it was before Game Shark. Yeah, I know about
so the Game Genie was something that you plugged the SNES cartridge into, then you plugged that into the SNES. And what it would do was just change memory slots. And there was no rhyme or reason. It was literally you just put in codes and hoped for the best. And people would find funny codes and they would post them on the internet, the beginnings of the internet, in news groups and stuff like that. And then, then you would actually end up starting to do weird things. Like, me and my friends, God, we played Super Nintendo Street Fighter 2 with these stupidest things. These codes had, the dumbest description to it. One of them that Cone will remember, actually, the two of us will always laugh about, even to this day, was Guile is as red as the devil. And all it did was just make Guile super red, and that was all it was. And it was the stupidest thing. There was one that was, we had to learn how to play Street Fighter 2 by never blocking by accident, because the blocks would actually stick to the opponent. So if you blocked a Blanca ball, it would hit you and then just hit you until you died. So you go, chip damage and died, you know? I had one code that basically made it so that if you played the game, it would take Vega's or Bison or Balrog or Sagat sprites and map them onto Ryu. So they would be colored with Ryu, but it would be the other character, and you would do Hadoken, and they would try with with Vega, if you did spin kick, he would like do this weird off the wall stabby thing, but it was the only way I could play the boss characters on the original SNES version. And so I had this version of it where I would do that, and then you could reduce the damage to like 1 pixel for every hit, so that I could just sit there and mess with the bosses and actually see what they might feel like if you could kind of play them. Like, it was so...
James, I think you need to run a Street Fighter 2 Game Genie tournament on Super Nintendo. It's like Rainbow Edition. You need to run like a mystery tournament of just Street Fighter 2 on SNES with random Game Genie codes turned on.
Dude, one of the funniest ones was that you could change jump attacks mapped to different attacks. So you could make it so that jump roundhouse became a standing jab or whatever like that. So the best one was you could make a jump roundhouse turn into crouch roundhouse. And so it became a low and a high attack at the same time, so it was unblockable. You could just do jump roundhouse, which turned into a sweep, and so it was literally unblockable because it would hit you low if you stood up and it would hit you high if you crouched.
I hate this. This is so cursed. This is what our world, this is what our society needs today, is just cursed as hell Street Fighter matches. Cursed Street Fighter games.
And the saddest thing is, I think I still have my Game Genie. I still think I have a Street Fighter 2 on the SNES, and I might be able to find all of the documents that I had of Game Genie codes. So if I could figure out a way to stream the Super Nintendo, I might actually be able to have an episode where we just mess with Game Genie Street Fighter 2.
I would love this, especially if you could tell me the Guile is res the devil code. Like, oh my god, that's the best thing ever.
Dude, there was one code that would replace the background with the versus screen. So you would play and like Guile, like da da da, you know, that thing would be over there, and like Bison would be in the background, and so that would scroll in the background, dude. It's so crazy. See, this is the thing. I don't know if I would have ever gone in this direction on these history shows without you asking these kind of questions. I don't know if it would have ever gotten to this point where now I'm thinking about streaming the Super Nintendo Game Genie Street Fighter 2.
All I asked about was home ports. I was a very vague question. Hey, tell me about home ports. And here you are telling me about Game Genie. Holy crap.
Oh, it's so funny. Actually, let me run downstairs and see if I can bust out my Game Genie. Hang on. I'm gonna be right back. I gotta do this.
I'm gonna use the restroom, so I'll be right back. Actually, I have to pee.
I have to check. I'm gonna disappoint everybody for now. I can't find the Game Genie right now, but I'll try to look for it a little bit. I'll definitely look for it a little bit. So, oh no, Cory's gone too. No. Yeah, I can't find my Game Genie, unfortunately. Apologize. I'll definitely do some more careful searches later on and decide to see if I can find it somewhere. I can't find it right now. I'll look harder for it later. So.
All right. No, it's just that's actually a very, very interesting topic. I would love to watch you play World Warrior or even Hyper Fighting with just Game Genie codes, like it's the home version of Rainbow Edition. I would love to see that. Dude,
you could seriously do that. You could make it so you could do special moves in the air and jump again. You could do all of that stuff with it. It was crazy. So I'm pretty sure that's kind of how they even made Rainbow Edition. They probably just like tweaked a bunch of stuff and were like, this is funny. And then they just went with it. So, oh man.
Oh my god. That's definitely a topic. I definitely need to see you do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
now if
I was more going to talk.
I was about to say, now if I can't find my Game Genie, I'm going to try to buy one off of eBay. Just so I can do this. Oh man. Okay,
This is
Kigar,
great. This is the world we live in.
yeah, Kigar, we're doing this basically every Monday now. So every Monday at 5 p.m. we're gonna do OK Sonic Boomer and just talk about all this stuff.
Thing is, I was originally asking about the home port topic to be like, okay, did anyone ever run home port tournaments? Like, would anybody go to an arcade and be like, hey, after this, we're gonna have a home port tournament at home or something like that?
That's actually a really good question. I don't know of any. I can't remember any sort of like home tournaments outside of just, hey, here's a birthday party, we gathered together, hey, let's run a tournament, you know. But outside of that, I can't think of any. There was never any really like official kind of situations, in my opinion. So.
Gotcha. And I know we're gonna go into this topic more the next time, but basically, would you say then you think that there wasn't that shift of having home tournaments until when Evo swapped off of arcade to home consoles?
Yeah, I think that was a major deciding factor. And again, we'll get into that later on, but it was still at the time hated, but still one of the best decisions ever. Oh yeah, Joe, we definitely talked about fake inputs last time. We talked about fake inputs last time because of how close you had to be with next to somebody, so you had to like fake inputs and stuff.
I still find that to be one of the most unique aspects, is because you guys are because both players are right next to each other. You had unique strategies like faking inputs, or bumping into them, or eating burritos before tournaments. I just love that part.
Not bathing.
Not bathing, Jesus. We've come a long way. Actually, no, we haven't.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Right. I think that's about it. That's all the time we've really got right now.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to just make things come to an end because there's still so much we could talk about.
But that's the beauty of it.
How long we're gonna go until we run out of topics to talk about.
Yeah, I know. That's the beauty about it. Is this means we've got weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of this. So.
More content coming directly to you.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying this a lot, so I'm having a lot of fun with this. So.
Oh no, same. Thank you so much. Like I'm both learning a lot, and I'm having a lot of fun. Like I've had a takeaway both last week and this week. Last week, my major takeaway was I was learning more about the actual arcades. Like I didn't know about what is it, Aladdin?
Oh yeah. The Aladdin's Castle. Yeah.
Learning about Aladdin's Castle was big because it was funny after you posted on Twitter. A lot more people were talking about Aladdin's Castle. Like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember going to Aladdin's Arcade.
Yeah.
Aladdin's Castle. And the other one was did not know that they did not tell you the moves of the special moves on the cabinet. They did not have a move list on there.
Yeah, that and Jason Wilson being an FGC guy too.
I've been reading tips and tricks since I was 8.
Oh my God.
I never knew that.
Yeah, no, Jason Wilson is a big important member of the FGC. Also, an avid video game collector himself. I'd been to his place one time to play a fighting game, and he's one of those guys that at one point in time, I think he sold his collection eventually, but he had like every Nintendo game officially ever published. He had every Super Nintendo game, every Genesis game. He was one of those guys that just collected everything. So he's one of those true video game fans, Jason Wilson. So yeah,
definitely want to meet more people, more retro members of the FGC or older people in the FGC, because I feel like the best stories and some of the best information comes from you guys.
Yeah, actually, Gundam Jehudi Kai, he did have the Nintendo World Championship card because he placed in the Nintendo World Championship. Yeah, Jason Wilson was one of the players in there. Like, he was in that tournament, so. Yeah, Jason Wilson has a very storied history in video games. So,
do you still have contact with Jason Wilson?
I have him on my Facebook. I can contact him anytime I want to. So
I was about to say, because one, I'd personally like to talk to him, and two, I think he'd make another good person to bring onto a show like this. You know, just to talk about history. Like You might not even need me. Like there are plenty of people within our community who you can talk to.
Yeah, but I mean, I just like having you on here for the perspective of being able to ask these questions, because I could end up like waxing nostalgic with someone, but if we ever say anything that blows your mind, like not having the move lists on the cabinet, I would have never even realized that was a problem. You know, that like it's good to have that perspective of someone going, wait a second. You know?
Yeah, for me, like the move list specifically, like that surprises me because I had never thought about, wait, there's no move list. That means everyone has to figure it out on their own, and how that experience must have been. That is the part that blew my mind, of hearing you and your brother trying to figure out moves and figuring out how SPDs work. That was mind-blowingly cool to me.
Oh, it's so funny. But, okay, I just want to say, you know, obviously we're going to be trying to do this every 5 p.m. Pacific time on Monday. If you guys do enjoy this content, definitely please subscribe, give some gift subs here, donate bits. I saw an anonymous cheer up there. I don't have the notifications for subscriptions and stuff. I actually have to think about adding those on here so I can see when people do subscribe. But, you know, also subscribe as well, because then I will just be buying Cory lots of meals in the future and stuff. So for helping out with this. So the more you guys sub, the more you guys donate, you know, the more amazing meals I'll be buying Cory once we can stop social distancing.
Yes, once we stop social distancing, maybe he'll be able to buy me a Hot Pocket or a Mountain Dew or a bag of Doritos. Something that keep me sustained through this gamerhood I lived through, right?
I'll try to get you something better than that.
Oh man, it'd be great. But no, yeah, everybody, thank you. Everybody who tuned in, thank you, James, for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun. I'm still learning a lot every time we have this show, which is the most exciting part for me.
We've got a lot more to cover too. We've got so much more to cover.
God, we've barely scratched the surface.
All right, cool. But again, follow Cory on Twitter as well. You can see at Cory Bell FGC.
I'm also on Twitch.
Your Twitch is just Cory Bell without FGC, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just gonna comment in
yeah, no problem.
chat, but that's me. Yeah, that's just
I
stream.
Okay.
I try to stream every day. It's sometimes fighting games, sometimes me screwing around playing other games.
I've seen.
But yeah, if you come check me out, appreciate it.
You've been streaming a lot of old games recently, huh? Like what?
Yeah, I've actually been playing my Super Nintendo Classic a lot more recently, so I've been playing a lot of those.
Okay.
One of the games I actually did want to talk about quickly, just in terms of ports, was Punch Out.
That game is really exciting. I saw you playing that. Yeah. Okay.
So that was it. That was my point.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitch or Twitter, I'm Cory Bell FGC on Twitter and just Cory Bell on Twitch. Cool. If you follow me, I appreciate it. Toss some donos, subs, whatever. Also appreciate it.
And expect all the greatest memes from Cory on the interwebs as well. So.
Yep. Shit. Meme poster deluxe. That's me.
Exactly.
That's about it from me.
Yep. And oh, nice. I see your emotes there too. Nice. But thanks guys for tuning in, and thanks guys for watching. Okay, Sonic Boomer, as I said, 5 p.m. Pacific time, will be on YouTube eventually. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe so you'll know every time a new Okay Sonic Boomer comes out. Tweet it out to all your friends, let everybody know about it so they can learn about the history of fighting games and such. So thanks guys for tuning in. Again, thank you, Cory. And this time, you know, you're not going to disappear on me and I had to close out without talking to you. I felt bad, but you know, the call lasted the whole time.
Thank you for doing that last time.
All right, cool. Thanks guys for watching, and take care and have a good night.
Have a good night. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Yes. Bye-bye.
Sonic Boom!